What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction. In this one, we have how India is becoming new Switzerland of the world. Before we dive into the video, if you guys happen to enjoy, please don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Give the video a thumbs up. Also, if you guys would like to support the channel by becoming a member, all you gotta do is hit that join button to receive your exclusive benefits. Let's dive right in.
India has significantly changed its global image in recent years, not unlike the transformation of Jassi in the serial Jassi Jassi Koi Nahi. India was once seen as a weak pushover.
When Pakistani terrorists inflicted the dastardly 26/11 terror attacks on Mumbai in 2008, India was caught grossly unprepared.
There's a perception in India that each time there is any measure for a conversation or any hope for a dialogue or any such site is created, it automatically attracts some kind of a terror attack or something of the sort. It derails the process.
ये उन्होंने हमें ये तोहफा दिया कि एक तरफ मतलब वो मुंह में राम राम और बगल में छुरी वाली बात कि मतलब एक तरफ जो है वो ताजर बरादरी का साथ देने की बात करते हैं और ट्रेड की बात करते हैं, मोहब्बत अमन आशी की बात करते हैं.
Hold up, let me just see if they got captions for that.
वो मुंह में राम राम
Oh,
और
no.
बगल में छुरी वाली
Okay.
बात कि मतलब एक तरफ जो है वो ताजर बरादरी का साथ देने की बात करते हैं और ट्रेड की बात करते हैं, मोहब्बत अमन आशी की बात करते हैं और दूसरी तरफ हमारे ताजरों को दहशतगर्द करार दे रहे हैं. मोहतरम भाइयों, ये हमारी आंखें खोलने के लिए काफी हैं.
But slowly, the surgical strikes changed that perception.
आतंकवादी कान खोल के सुन ले, ये देश इस बात को कभी भूलने वाला नहीं है.
At least 35 to 40 terrorists have been killed. The duration of the Indian surgical strikes is between 12 midnight last night and 4:30 this morning.
IS aircraft sneaked onto Pakistani soil and wreaked havoc on the terror camps. And that's how Operation Bandar was initiated.
I said, we're not just going to keep allowing y'all to spread this terror and keep doing these attacks and think that it ain't going to be no consequences and think that we're not going to retaliate and we're not going to send a message. So we really finna show y'all what's up. And now that they did, it's like, message sent. Now try another attack. God dang.
This was a counter-terrorist operation.
Western countries viewed India as a poor, struggling, and irrelevant economy. But after becoming the fifth largest economy, soon to hopefully become the fourth largest economy, India also is proving them wrong. China considered itself the landlord and India just the tenant. But after the Galwan clash, India shattered that belief as well.
In 2020, after the clashes in the Galwan Valley, India announced that 20 soldiers were killed in action. But China refused to admit losing men. Beijing now says 4 soldiers were killed, but the real number is much higher. A new investigative report claims that 38 Chinese soldiers died in Galwan Valley.
On one hand, India was successful in showing its power. But on the other hand, they've also been successful in sort of becoming the world's new Switzerland, where they don't have to exhibit their power if they don't need to. In an increasingly complex world full of deadly rivalries between nations, they've been able to develop friendly or at least cordial relations with pretty much every country, not you bitch, in the world. On the geographical stage, India has made remarkable...
I have absolutely noticed that about India, bro. Like, literally have, it seems like they've created great relationships with almost every country. Like, and nobody's really like, besides Pakistan, nobody's really got a bad deal with India. Nobody really like hates India or doesn't like India. Even China and India done came to a deal to at least be cordial. If you like, at least no, let's just stop attacking each other on these borders. Let's be cordial with each other.
Progress.
Yeah.
And this has not been an easy transition. There is a very delicate game that India has played, and up to this point, played very, very well. But being the world Switzerland also comes with its own set of challenges. So let's talk about all of that in the video today. Right now, the entire world is a little bit like a WWE Royal Rumble, and people are using gallows humor to make the best of the situation.
तेरी ज़बान बहुत चलती है सूर्या, हाथ ज़्यादा चलता है. मेरी पावर को मत भूल तू, मुझे याद रखने की जरूरत नहीं. मुझसे हाथ मिला ले, गद्दार से दोस्ती नहीं करता. मारा जाएगा. अपनी सोच. इतना गुरूर ठीक नहीं. सर पर कफन बांधने वाले मौत से नहीं डरते.
Will it really not do none of these steps?
Okay, cool. Boys, move. चलता हूँ सूर्या.
No.
Get lost.
The world is currently facing several significant challenges. China is experiencing economic difficulties. They realize that funding Pakistan was a worse idea than investing in Argentinian Prime Minister Javier Milei's crypto scam. It is waiting to make a move on Taiwan, which will undoubtedly make the world even more volatile. We're also currently witnessing the Russia-Ukraine war. The ongoing conflict has led to unpredictable global consequences, affecting economies and international relations. Russian forces continue their aggressive campaign across multiple fronts in Ukraine. In response, Ukrainian forces have mounted defensive operations and reported some advances of their own. But there is bad news on that front from the Ukrainian perspective, as after the public bust-up between the Ukrainian president and Trump, America has ordered an indefinite pause on the over $1 billion in US military aid to Ukraine. Trump has criticized Zelensky for suggesting that the end of the war is still very, very far away, labeling it as the worst statement that he could have made. He further warned that the US would not tolerate Zelensky's stance much longer. As a result of this, now there are tensions between European countries who strongly support Ukraine, who are understandably angry at Russia's western expansion, and the United States. This is the closest that we have come to the breakup of NATO since World War II. We have tensions in the Middle East as well, conflicts involving Israel and Hamas, conflicts involving Israel and Iran, the potential nuclear arming of Iran, and complexities in oil politics that are contributing to instability in the region. Europe itself is grappling with an energy crisis, as well as a migration crisis, as well as a very volatile domestic political situation in many European countries. The United States itself is dealing with serious internal political divisions that impact its foreign policy and global leadership. So it's a very complex world right now where different blocs are demanding loyalties from countries that they believe should be either with them or against them. And in this absolute shit show, India has charted a very unique course, and quite a successful one, might I add. Under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, they've chosen a path of strategic autonomy, reminiscent of Switzerland's traditional neutrality. This approach, in India's opinion, allows India to maintain relationships with various global powers without being confined to a specific alliance, while, incredibly, having most of the world kind of okay with it. It literally is the world's most cordial swingers arrangement. If you look at the Russia-Ukraine...
It's like, yeah, we cool, know what I'm saying? We cool with Russia, but we also cool with Ukraine. We cool with Israel, but we was also cool with Palestine. We cool with China, but the US are also our friends. It's like, they good. They just not cool with Pakistan. I mean, they not really cool with China, but for the moment, we not at each other's necks. We not warring with each other. But Pakistan, they don't give a F about Pakistan. But everywhere else, like, India cool. Like,
Ukraine war, India took a neutral stance in the Ukraine-Russia war. Despite international pressure, India continues to engage in trade with Russia, particularly in oil and fertilizers. A lot of this oil is then exported to European countries, thus keeping oil prices down. But also, on the other hand, in August 2024, Prime Minister Modi visited Ukraine, emphasizing dialogue and diplomacy as a solution to the conflict, as well as promising aid while carefully avoiding direct condemnation of Russia. India is also diversifying its defense partnerships. At the Aero India 2025 show, both Russian and American fighter jets were showcased at the same place, highlighting India's balanced approach to military collaborations. They've also got strategic defense partnerships with countries like France and Israel. India, under Modi's leadership, has revitalized the Act East policy, focusing on strengthening ties with Southeast Asian and East Asian nations. It has also been able to develop good relationships with important Arab Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, while maintaining a deep strategic relationship with Israel, while maintaining a strategic relationship with Iran, particularly relating to the Chabahar port that connects India to West Asia. India is currently doing a better job of juggling than Akshay Kumar ever did in Garam Masala. This strategy aims to enhance economic and strategic partnerships, particularly in counterbalancing China's influence in the region. Shockingly, there has also been a slight thawing of the relationship between India and China, with both countries agreeing to de-escalation at the Indian-China border. So to understand why this is so impressive, we need to understand again what a shit show Indian foreign policy used to be. India, since its independence, was understandably wary of big superpowers like the USSR, USA, and particularly the European countries.
From forge and furnace, lathe and milling machine, the various components find their way to the spacious assembly bay to emerge finally as stationary compressors.
They wanted to develop a strategy of strategic autonomy. Therefore, after independence, the first Indian Prime Minister Nehru developed a policy of non-alignment, in which, theoretically, he wasn't aligned with either big superpower bloc. But ultimately, this so-called non-alignment was only a mirage as India started drifting more and more towards Russia, alienating itself from the United States, who in turn developed Pakistan as a close ally. By the mid-1960s, India and the US were already experiencing serious turbulences. Washington wanted India to be a firm ally against communism, but India wasn't ready for that. Despite US skepticism, India still received economic aid, especially food shipment under the PL 480 program, which helped India through food shortages.
Famines and hunger, which were regular features in India, are now more the exception than the rule. And even when they do take place, they are contained. And a country which once had to rely on the shiploads of PL 480 food grains, which arrived from the USA to feed its people, thanks to the Green Revolution, can now boast of surplus food grains.
That's so freaking amazing. Like, literally all the progress that India has made and is continuing to make is an inspiration to so many out there in the world. Like, it's amazing how resilient the people of India are. And like, now they thriving. And it's only up from here as they continue to move up the list of biggest economies in the world. You think in the next 20, 30 years, India probably will crack that top 3. And that'll be insane. But yeah, their position of strategic autonomy is, and everybody is cool with it, is an incredible thing. Like, you don't gotta literally commit to any side, because what you're gonna do is what's best for India. And so no partnerships or allies or anything will get in your way because you got strategic autonomy. I like it.
President Nixon and his national security advisor Henry Kissinger slowly started viewing Pakistan as their gateway to China as India got closer and closer to Russia, as well as a counterweight to India. They also saw Pakistan as a counterweight to Russian influence in West Asia. In fact, when war broke out between India and Pakistan in December 1971, India managed to swiftly defeat Pakistan and helped create Bangladesh. While India saw it as a humanitarian and strategic victory, the US saw it as a geopolitical loss. In fact, during the war, Nixon even sent the US 7th Fleet into the Bay of Bengal, although Russia already had also deployed its ships as a deterrent against American intervention in the war. Just when things also couldn't get more complicated, India decided to test a nuclear bomb, particularly because Pakistan and China were both developing nuclear programs of their own. In 1974, the world woke up to a headline that read Smiling Buddha, the code name for India's first nuclear test. But the US wasn't smiling. India had now entered the exclusive club of nuclear-capable nations, and it did so without US permission or oversight. In response, the US imposed sanctions and cut off nuclear cooperation with India, and essentially said, you're on your own now, good luck. This period also saw India tightening its bonds even more with the Soviet Union and getting further and further alienated from the United States. The US then developed a closer relationship with Pakistan. But ultimately, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when the world for a very brief period of time turned into a unipolar world with America being that one pole, the USA saw India's rise economically and started seeing India as another potential partner than simply an antagonist. And one of the biggest breakthroughs during this time was the 2008 India Civil Nuclear Agreement, championed by Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and George W. Bush. For decades, India had been sidelined from the global nuclear order, but this deal changed everything. It gave India access to civilian nuclear technology and fuel, all without signing the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Meanwhile, the Quad, which was a loose military partnership between India, US, Japan, and Australia, which was first proposed in 2007, was revived as China grew aggressive in the Indo-Pacific. So while India was learning to balance its relationship with the US and Russia, there were still delicate and strategic relationships with many important countries in the rest of the world that India was struggling to handle during this time. This was the time when the Arab world was still largely deeply anti-India. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Qatar were spending billions of dollars in establishing madrasas in India and spreading Islamist ideology throughout the country, which created a massive national security risk for India. China was busy developing relationships with countries in Western and East Asia, and India was getting left behind in these areas. But a lot of this would change with the arrival of Modi. As soon as Modi was elected, he immediately showed that he was thinking beyond just the US and Russia. He was focusing on new strategic grounds that India must play on, particularly the Middle East. This was made evident by the fact that Modi became the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel in 2017. And since then, bilateral trade between the two countries has grown rapidly. In all this, India also was able to maintain its support and solidarity with the Palestinian cause, as well as
I'm telling
endorsing the
you.
two-state solution, basically walking a very difficult tightrope. This talent
Yes,
of walking the
very.
tightrope was also evident in India's shift in policy regarding the Middle East. India started developing a very close relationship with many big Arab Muslim countries. They conducted joint army, navy, and air exercises with the UAE and Oman. How India sees itself in the world today was also seen during the global pandemic, where India's role became that of a compassionate partner and a benevolent leader rather than an extractive leader like China. When India exported vaccines to 65 nations that desperately needed it, whether it be neighbors like Nepal and Bangladesh or far-off African nations like Congo and Nigeria.
Many vaccines being produced in countries around the world, but there's only one country that has the manufacturing capacity to produce sufficient quantities to satisfy the demand of citizens in every country.
And isn't India called the world's pharmacy or something like that? Pharmacy of the world. As he's talking about this, yeah, the way India has walked that tightrope, because it is a tightrope, to be able to walk, to continue to create great partnerships with all these countries that are enemies of each other, but you're that friend in the middle that's cool with this friend and cool with that friend, and neither friend is mad at you for being cool with the other. They're both accepting of it. Like, that is an incredible job of India to walk that tightrope, because in strategic autonomy, like I said, they always you manage to get the best deals and best partnerships for India. And I believe that's an absolutely beautiful thing. So shout out to how they walked this tightrope and created all these partnerships with these countries around the world. And they've done an incredible job.
And that's India.
Taiwan has praised India for helping Paraguay to get vaccines amid Chinese pressure. Remember, last month, India gifted 100,000 doses of its indigenous Covaxin vaccine to Paraguay. Taiwan added that India will be sending another shipment to Paraguay soon.
India has used the fruits of its independence to assist other developing countries. And on this point, Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, we owe you a debt of gratitude.
Canada has secured 2 million doses
God
of the Covishield vaccine through an agreement with Verity Pharmaceuticals and the Serum Institute of India.
When looking at Arab Muslim countries, Modi himself had a very strong personal relationship with the head of the UAE as well as Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. Modi was able to recognize that these countries were looking to change their societies. They were looking to reform, they were looking to modernize, because these countries also understood that in order to grow, in order to continue to have the standards of living that they have today, Islamism would need to go. These societies would need to modernize, their economies would need to diversify, and for that, their societies would need to reform. Modi was very smart to notice this strategic change in the Arab leadership and was very quick to develop a strong personal relationship with these leaders. This led to not just strategic benefits for India, in Saudi Arabia promising to look after Indian national security interests, but countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia and now Qatar have promised tens of billions of dollars of investment in India. India's strategic balancing also paid dividends when 8 Navy officers who were sentenced to death in Qatar got their sentences commuted and were able to return to India safely. India has been very clear in explaining to the world that they do not want any wars. Modi has said that this is not an era of war. It is coming from a place of knowledge and experience, having had multiple wars and many a quasi-war imposed on India, causing loss of lives and sending our economy back by many decades.
However, PM Modi stands out as the only world leader who directly sat next to President Putin and urged him to end the war, emphasizing that children are dying. This bold move silenced many of his critics. India's position on the conflict has been unequivocal. Prime Minister Modi advocates for a word not at war and maintains that solutions cannot be found on the battlefield.
Another big
They were never willing to condemn Russia, which I don't think they should have had to. But India, the West tried to act like India was like in Russia's corner. India was like, no, like, we don't support this war at all. Like, we want it to end as quickly as possible in the most peaceful way possible, because there's valuable people, there's valuable lives being lost right now. The lives of children, the lives of so many. So why they didn't choose to condemn Russia, because I mean, Russia's helped them in so many different situations and has had, I feel like, such a great partnership with India throughout the years. at the same time, they don't condone the war. They didn't condone that invasion of Ukraine either. And as you see, Modi tried to go there and as he went to Ukraine and tried to help figure it out as a mediator. Hopefully, these two countries do figure it out soon. Ukraine and Russia. All for Ukraine. I think that Russia should not get any concessions. But you do want the war to end, so valuable lives stop being lost.
Challenge to India's talent of walking the tightrope was Donald Trump when he got elected and came into the White House in 2025. Donald Trump has started his presidency on a war footing with the rest of the world. And India wasn't safe from this either. In January 2025, he did a call with Prime Minister Modi where he pushed India to increase procurement of American-made security equipment and move towards a fair bilateral trading relationship. He's also criticized India's tariff system and pushed for reciprocal trade. He's also threatened tariffs on India.
When India, which is a very big abuser, he happens to be coming to meet me next week.
But the word reciprocal is important because if somebody charges us, India, we don't have to talk about own. If India charges us 100%, do we charge them nothing for the same?
In a bold statement that has caught everybody's attention, former US President Donald Trump issued a stark warning to India about its high taxes on American goods.
His America First approach was also visible during his first term when he had warned India of exporting hydroxychloroquine or threatened consequences.
Donald Trump, remember, the United States had requested India to release hydroxychloroquine. Trump has now warned of retaliation if the government stops the supply. In his press briefing, Trump said that he's spoken to Prime Minister Narendra Modi about the supply of hydroxychloroquine, adding that if India doesn't allow the export, it may face retaliation.
President Donald Trump has hinted at retaliation if India turns down America's request for export of hydroxychloroquine to America. This is the anti-malarial drug that is being used in the United States to treat coronavirus patients.
He also warned BRICS countries, including India, when they are threatened to challenge the dollar hegemony.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has warned BRICS member countries over attempts to undercut the U.S. dollar. Trump threatened to impose a 100% tariff on the BRICS group.
I'm telling you, that man loved throwing out threats, bro. That man loved to throw out some threats and throw out some tariff threats and any kind of threats. I feel like try to bully these countries into doing what he wants. But from a lot of these countries, I'm seeing they like, we ain't gonna be bullied. We don't rock with you, dog, and we not gonna do what you want us to do because you're threatening us.
If they did not commit to not creating a new currency or supporting another currency that will replace the United States dollar.
Well, President-elect Donald Trump has threatened BRICS countries of 100% tariffs if they try to move away from the US dollar and carry their own international trade using a separate BRICS currency.
But for all this bluster, when Modi and Trump actually met in February 2025, the meeting went very, very well, with Trump praising Modi as a tough negotiator.
And praising Modi every chance. All that trash he talked. Praising Modi every chance he could get.
Mr. President, you spoke about Prime Minister Modi as a tough negotiator. Who was a tougher negotiator today and who has a better negotiating tactic when it comes to tariffs?
Oh, he's a much tougher negotiator than me, and he's a much better negotiator than me. There's not even a contest.
They ended up having a very cordial and friendly meeting in Washington, D.C. Compare this to Trump's exchanges with pretty much any other world government, whether it's Canada, Mexico, Ukraine, or the EU. This shows how well Modi has been able to understand what drives Trump, understand that the United States is the biggest dog in the yard, and Modi happily agreed to play along with the United States' demands. Modi has understood when to stick and when to twist when it comes to its global relationships, and that has been a very successful aspect of India's foreign policy. Modi's foreign policy seems to be inspired by the famous Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping's own belief, who believed that it was important for China, while it was growing, to hide their strength and bide their time. Do not display your strength while you're building it. Work quietly and work in the darkness, and don't let your enemies or even your friends see how strong you are becoming. Only show your cards when you're in a position of absolute strength. This is what China has done over the last 50 years. They have worked quietly, they have worked in the shadows, and now to the world's surprise, they're strong and they're flexing their muscles, albeit in an evil way. It's a curious strategy to take revenge for the excesses of colonial powers by becoming a colonial colonial power yourself. It's like if the
Facts.
Avengers spent all this time fighting and defeating Thanos and restoring the universe's population back to its original size, only to then turn around, put the gauntlet on themselves, and then snap half the population out of existence
Be
themselves.
insane.
Black Widow, who gave her life to defeat Thanos, must be like,
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
so this is a very crucial time for the Indian economy. India needs to make sure that they can grow for the next 10 to 15 years without any major interruptions, any major shocks, political upheavals, or global catastrophes. Modi understands that India's priority should be becoming a $10 trillion economy as soon as possible, whatever the cost. Along with hard power, India has also been very successful in using its soft power, be it yoga.
It is wonderful to see the entire world come together again for yoga.
That's so
I
awful.
think that this event and Prime Minister Modi has done a wonderful thing. I think India is going to be more and more important as the years go on.
Yoga really helps unify the world, and it's really great for the world to share on this day.
People get to cherish and harmonize the love and the peace, to change the personality, to help the world.
I love that
This
so
yoga
much.
is great Indian culture.
Ayurveda, Hindu philosophy.
In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna sums it up very succinctly, as the Gita is a very succinct text. Not tu eva hamjatuna sam, natvam me janaripa, na chaiva bhavishala sarvevayam param. Beautiful poetry. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future will any of us cease to be. So this is Upanishadic philosophy, Vedic philosophy, concisely put. This idea is a total game changer philosophically.
Its spiritual gurus, and its movie industry. All of them have solidified India's position in the world as a mature, developing international power. And luckily for India, at least so far, Trump seems to be looking to give Putin an off-ramp when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war. He seems to be willing to engage Russia much more than the previous administration, which means that at least for the time being, he will be much more respectful of India's relationship with Russia. However, this neutrality that India is trying to...
I'm not a fan of Russia. I'm going to just say that point blank, period. But I have no problem with India being cool with Russia because I feel like Russia has had their back on so many different occasions. And if Russia giving the best deals on oil or energy, gas, whatever, India should absolutely take it. But yeah, although I'm not cool with them, I have no problem with India being cool with Russia.
Cultivate successfully, I might add. It comes with its own set of challenges. If you are not in a particular camp, what happens if a war breaks out with China? If you're not willing to be firmly in the American camp, will the Americans be as willing to support you in this war against China? And this is why it is so crucial for India to develop economically, continue to strengthen its military. Because the path of neutrality is not without significant dangers. The biggest danger being a two-front conflict between India and Pakistan and China. So no matter what, India has to be ready economically and militarily for a scenario like that and not have to depend on its partners to bail it out, particularly if it chooses a path of neutrality. And I want to ask you, do you believe that this path of neutrality that India has been walking, trying to be the new Switzerland, do you think this is a smart strategy? Do you think India should be in a particular camp, either completely with the United States or completely with another world power? Let me know your comments in the comment section down below. Other than that, guys, I will see you for the next episode. And to all of you, stay happy, stay healthy, and a secular pranam.
I like India's neutrality. I don't think they should go to one camp or the other. Keep doing what you're doing. I think what Modi is doing is working perfectly for the country of India. So why fix something that's not broken? Y'all talk to me in the comment section. Tell me how you feel about the video. If you enjoyed, please don't forget to subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up. Check out the next one. I'll see y'all next time.